الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأزواجه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. Once Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu, he left his home, and on the way he met Hanzala radiyallahu anhu. Hanzala radiyallahu anhu at that time was saying, Nafaqa Hanzala, Nafaqa Hanzala. That Hanzala became munafiq. Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiyallahu anhu asked him, Hanzala, why would you say this? He said, the reason is, when we are in the company of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we feel as the Jannah is in front of our eyes. And good deeds will be taking us towards the Jannah. It's not just a belief as if we see it, that you do any good deed, it's leading you towards Jannah and taking you closer to Jannah. And at the same time, we feel that we see the Jahannam also with our eyes. And every sin is taking us towards Jahannam. When we leave that gathering of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that feeling goes away. We get busy with our work, we get busy with our families, and that feeling goes away. And for that reason, he was saying, Nafaqa Hanzala, that I am munafiq. That in the company of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is how I behave, this is the level of my iman. When I came out of there, I can't keep that. I can't maintain that level of iman. Abu Bakr radiyallahu anhu, when he heard this, it got him worried too. And they both went to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The whole situation was explained to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Sa'atan fa sa'atan ya Hanzala. Hanzala, that feeling does not stay all the time. It keeps on going up and down. Sa'atan fa sa'atan. It goes up and down. Sometime it will be at that height and at that peak, and sometime it will go at a different level. إنكم لو تدومون على ما تكونون عليه عندي. If you always continue to have the same type of feeling and type of iman that you have in my company, وعلى الذكر, and if you continue doing the dhikr, لصافحتكم الملائكة على فرشكم وفي طرقكم. Angels will come to shake hands with you while you are laying down in your bed and while you are walking on the streets. If that feeling will continue, angels will keep on coming to shake hands with you. This is how great that feeling is. But it's not easy, and it's not possible for people to continue having that sa'atan fa sa'atan. It keeps on going up and down. All of this that we are seeing over here, as we go back, these feelings will go away. The feeling of doing the ibadah, the feeling of following the sunnah, the feeling of remembering the akhirah, remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At this time, this feeling that we have of our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that at least reminds us, I'm a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and really want to do something for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want to keep on doing something. These feelings will not continue, but we have to remember that they should not just totally go away. Sa'atan fa sa'atan. Sometimes they come, sometimes they go. But if they just go away, then it's something that we really have to worry about. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, what was he doing in those gatherings that was making the level of Iman for Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in to get to that height? It was Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam's company. Just being in the company of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. While being around Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, they used to feel the level of Iman. This is Iman bil Ghaib, Iman in the Akhirah. When Hanzala radiyallahu anhu feels, he says, when we are in that gathering, this is what we feel, that as we see the Jannah and we see the Jahannam. So our a'mal are accordingly. Iman bil Akhirah, Iman in things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have told us. When this thing gets weak, and there is no strength in that anymore, then of course we see something in front of our eyes. The other thing, it's hidden. We don't see it. And that strength of the Iman is not there. Right away these things start pulling us towards themselves. This is why one of the very important things that we need to do is read the ayahs that are related to Akhirah. Ayahs of Al-Quran Al-Kareem that talk about Akhirah, that talk about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be taking the hisab, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make people gather on the day of resurrection, what type of situations people will have to go through on that day. What will be our needs on that day? What will happen to me and you on that day? A day that will be longer than 100,000 years for some people. For us, we can't stand for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, we get tired. How are we going to stand on that day for such a long time? We cannot take a little heat of this dunya. How are we going to take the heat of the sun on that day when it will be only a fist away from our heads? For us, who cannot stay without food and without drink for some hours, how are we going to survive on that day and no water at all? When people will be thirsty. And this is not just as punishment, this will be just a normal situation of the day. Except if Allah will protect someone because of some special a'mal. Generally, everyone will be in that situation. How can we do those a'mal that will protect us from the hardships and difficulties of that day? In one of the hadiths, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam talking about Jahannam, he says people will be getting burned in Jahannam, and their body is getting swollen, and finally the pus is dripping from the body. So much pus will be dripping from the body of the people of Jahannam that Nahr al-Khabal, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, there will be a river of this pus of the people of Jahannam. So much pus is dripping that a whole river will be there, and since the river is Jahannam, and from the people of Jahannam it will be boiling. And then when people will look for water, they will be given a drink from the same river that drink your own pus. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, this person is so thirsty. He is so thirsty that he knows this is boiling and this is not water, this is pus. But because of how thirsty he is, he would still say, let me try it. At least something would go into my throat. Something will get it wet. So he will take it. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, as he will get the glass closer to his mouth, فَتَقَلَّصَ شِفَتَهُ الْعُلْيَا, his upper lip will shrink because of the heat of this glass. Will shrink until will go to his forehead. The lower he puts the water, he puts the pus on his mouth. Because of that boiling pus that he have put on his lip, the lower lip will fall and will get to his stomach. Still the person is thirsty, still he wants something in his throat. So he would still put some more. It will go into his throat, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says it will be so boiling that it will just bring everything out of his stomach from the bottom. And on top of this, the scary word of the hadith that says, فَيُصَلِّطُ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمُ الْجُوعِ, Allah then will make them get hungry. So everyone will feel hungry at that time. The wordings of the hadith, فَيَعْدِلُ مَا بِهِمْ مِنَ الْعَذَابِ. These wordings are really scary. That they will get hungry, and that azab of being hungry will be just equal to this azab that they are already going through. In fact, now that being hungry in that situation, they will feel that this azab of not having food is worse than getting burned. For us, who cannot stay hungry for some hours, no, without water for some hours. Someone has a headache, breaks his fast, I have to take medicine. It's our weakness. We are human beings. Little boiling water. You turn on the shower. The water was boiling. It burns our souls. We cannot take it. This is normal water of this dunya. The water is too cold. We cannot take shower. How can we take all of these things of the akhirah? And these things have been mentioned in the Quran. يُصَبُّ مِنْ فَوْقِ رُؤُوسِهِمُ الْحَمِيمِ. Boiling water will be put on top of their head. A person is standing, and the angel will take boiling water and will throw it on this person's head. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, the least azab a person would have is that person would be made to stand on two flames of fire from Jahannam. He's made to stand on two flames of fire that are from Jahannam. Because of the flames of the fire that are under his feet, his brain will boil, and will boil so much that his head will burst, and the brain will become dripping off his head. Will come out of his head. This is how boiling it would be. Imagine a person standing on those burning, on these flames of fire. What will be the feeling on his feet? Little scratch, we break the salah. The person in salah, he goes all the way down. We cannot take it. It's our weakness. How are we going to take all of this? And these are realities that have been mentioned of akhirah. This is the iman that we need to remember, that these are realities. This is not just a story. This is something that people will have to go through. If we go with these a'mal that we have at this time, they will make us to go through that. For Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'een, they did not care about any hardship, any difficulty of this dunya. They did not care about it. For them, really, there was no hardship in this dunya. Why? Because they see those things with their eyes. They always see these things. And right away he's comparing either this or that. This is nothing comparing to that. And therefore we see Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'een. Nothing stopped them. Nothing in this world was able to stop them from following the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What was that? It's iman bil akhirah. One of the Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'een was captured by the enemy. And the king, there were few Sahaba, and there was a group of them. The king tried to turn them away from Islam. He tried his best. Nothing worked with them. Abdullah ibn Huzafa al-Sahmi radiyallahu anhu. He was the Amir. The king's main goal was to turn the Sahabi of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam away from the Deen, to make fun of this Deen. Now we turned a Sahabi, a companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, we turned him away from Islam. After trying his best, they realized that nothing is working. They locked them in separate rooms. And then finally, they kept them hungry. After some time, they presented pork and alcohol to Abdullah ibn Huzafa radiyallahu anhu. But Abdullah ibn Huzafa radiyallahu anhu have determined, I'm not going to touch this. And he's hungry. And he knows it may cost him his life. If he won't eat, he may die. They leave him like that for a few days. And he does not touch it. And their fear now is that he may die. They don't want him to die, because they will lose. They want something else from this person. The king called him. And he said to him, why don't you eat? He says, that is haram according to our deen. Why don't you drink? This is haram too. But don't you know that Quran says, and they know it, Quran says, إِلَّا مَطْرِرْتُمْ إِلَيْهِ. When you are in that critical situation, when you're forced to it, you have no choice, then you can do it. Abdullah ibn Huzafa radiyallahu anhu says, I know that too. But I know something more than this. And that is preventing me from eating it. I will not eat it. How many times we find people, they come and tell us, you are telling us we can't eat meat in this country? I mean, even say, God forbid, a situation comes when you cannot eat meat. Subhanallah, there is so many other things that we are eating. And even the person knows that there is so much other rizq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, day and night we are eating it. But still, how can I stay for a month without eating meat? There is no halal, okay. إِلَّا مَطْرِرْتُمْ إِلَيْهِ. We are forced to it. No choice. Abdullah ibn Huzafa radiyallahu anhu, he did not touch that. The reason was, this is not a time when I'm comparing saving my life or just dying because of no food. This is a time of saving the honor and the respect of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of this deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are trying to humiliate the deen by making me eat haram, so that they can say a sahabi of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam ate haram. And therefore I will give my life before giving them the opportunity of saying something like this about Islam. Then they tried to get him involved in haram. Nothing worked. Finally, the king ordered to have some boiling oil. They brought a big pot and they started boiling the oil in it. When the oil was boiling, they called all of them. And while they are watching, all of them are standing there, the king gave other people, started with the other people. He gave them the opportunity of, if you want to save your life, you want to go back home, you turn away from Islam. Just say that you don't believe in it, I will let you go. Or we will throw you in this boiling oil. They said, we cannot give up this deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Today, if we take this to anyone else, just go and read this hadith and this story in a masjid, right away people will question, how come they didn't do it? They should have done it to save their lives. They threw the people in front of Abdullah radiallahu anhu. When you see someone getting into that boiling oil in front of your eyes, your heart will melt. You will think, at least let me just to save my life. Let me say something. Finally, it was the turn of Abdullah ibn Huzafa radiallahu anhu. The king ordered that throw him also in there. And they took him towards that oil, towards that pot. Before they throw him, they saw tears in his eyes. And the king told them any sign that he may turn away from his religion and he may give up, bring him to me right away. When they saw tears in his eyes, saw his crying, they took him to the king. That he's crying. At least now there is hope that he's afraid, he's scared. So the king said, I see that you are crying. You must be remembering your family, you want to go back home. You don't want to go through this hardship. So just turn away, just say anything against your religion, I will let you go. He said, no, you misunderstood me. The reason I'm crying is, I was thinking Allah has done so many favors to me. I have only one life to offer for His sake. I wish if I had 100 lives, I would offer all of them one after another. I'm crying because I have only one. I cannot offer anything more than this. And what is this for me to offer to Allah? This is what makes me cry. And the way we are throwing this deen of Allah out of our homes. The way we are throwing the sunnahs of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam out of our lives. Not a single tear in our eyes. Then what have we done to the deen of Allah? With all the favors of Allah, I cannot even offer this much. Just so that I look what people like to see me, the way people want to see me, the person goes and shaves his beard, just because of that, to please others. Throw the sunnah out of his life. Give up the salah because people will be looking at me. Not just looking at me. If we know the value of salah, we will be just like Abdullah bin Huzafa radiallahu anhu. But for small things, deen is just going out. Son, if you can't do it, then don't do it. We are advising our children. If you can't pray at your school, then at the end of the day, when you come back home, then you make up for all the prayers. This is advice, a good advice from parents to their children early morning. That if you can't pray, come back at the end of the day and make up for all the prayers. Which means, open all the doors that you missed the prayers, do them qada. We are really throwing the deen out. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when he was going for Mi'raj, this is hadith, authentic hadith and Hasan. Imam Ahmad rahmatullahi alayhi have narrated it in his Musnad, and many other muhaddiseen in their books, that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when he was going for Mi'raj, he smelled some fragrance close to Bayt al-Maqdis. So he asked Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam, "Ma hadhihi al-rih al-tayyiba?" What is this beautiful smell? This fragrance. Where is it coming from, O Jibreel? Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam said, "This is coming from the grave of a woman who used to comb the hair of Fir'aun's daughter. It is from her grave." And as I said this, the time won't allow us, but it reminds me, starting from the time of Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in, there were so many people that we have in the history of Islam that when they were digging their graves, they would have fragrance from it. They would have a special smell from there that people have never smelled anything like it. The first incident, as far as I remember reading in the books of history, was Sa'd radiyallahu anhu. Sa'd ibn Mu'az radiyallahu anhu. A Sahabi whose janazah was attended by 70,000 of malaika. 70,000 angels came down to attend the janazah of Sa'ad radiallahu anhu. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, اهتز له عرش الرحمن. The throne of Allah started shaking when knew that Sa'ad radiallahu anhu died. Even the Arsh started shaking because of the death of Sa'ad radiallahu anhu. Subhanallah. This is something that we just keep on going on side tracks now. Opens another topic there of how Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in achieved closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How close this person must be to Allah that the Arsh of Allah is shaking on his death. 70,000 malaika are coming down. And there are narrations that say that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam himself participated in digging his grave. And each time they would pick the dust up to dig the grave, as they pick the dust up, it will be like perfume and it will smell, it will have a beautiful fragrance from it, from as they are digging it, before even they bury him there. And then you continue looking at the history, many of the Sahaba and Tabi'een and Muhaddiseen and Fuqaha, and really there is a long list of those people who used to have a lot of fragrance from their graves. One of the recent ones, Mawlana Ahmad Ali Lahori rahmatullahi alayhi. There was so much fragrance from his grave that people, even after he was buried, people used to come and take the dust away from his grave. They used to take the dust away from there. And then his sons would go and fill it more. As they would fill it, people will come, and now that dust has that fragrance. People will come and take that one. One of his sons one day, filling it up, and he says, Dad, for you this is a big karama. MashaAllah, people are benefiting from your karama, and for us it's a continuous work. From that day on, the fragrance went away. Gone, that's it, no more. And after that, Shaykh al-Hadith Mawlana Zakaria rahmatullahi alayhi. People smelled it from his grave when they were digging it. And after burial, one of the people that went into the qabr to hold the body, his name was Ata'ur Rahman from Medina Munawwara. He says that I went home, then because of getting down into the grave, into the qabr, so he changed his clothing because it had dirt on it. So he said, I changed the clothing, and of course, those clothes that had dirt on it, we put it on the side. He said, we smelled that there was a fragrance in the whole house. And we kept on looking for it. We don't know the source of it. It's a fragrance that we never smelled it in our life. He says it continued for 2 days that we are looking for it, and we can't find the source of it. And he says, I see that clothing are there, and there is a lot of fragrance from there, but I could never even think that it is from there. Never clicked his mind that it could be from there. So he's looking for a bottle of perfume or something like this. He said, finally, when we saw that it is really, the whole fragrance, mainly the source looks from somewhere around here. So he said, I picked up those clothes and I realized that was the source of it, from the dirt that is from the qabr. Of course, barakah of the Deen, and especially Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used their lives for the Deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's sweat used to be the best fragrance for Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in, and we know it through the hadith, that they used to collect it and especially use it for weddings. Best fragrance. They used to collect his sweat. One of his aunts, one day he's sleeping and it was hot, he's sweating, and she has a bottle, she's collecting all of the sweat and putting it in the bottle. Because that was the best athar for them. So if the sweat of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has fragrance on it, for sure a person who would follow the sunnah will have something of it. These are the people who followed the sunnah throughout their lives. They always followed the ways of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless them that even their bodies had fragrance. And if I start talking about this topic only about Shaykh al-Hadith rahmatullah alayhi, because that's the one that we know the closest, there is so much about him in his life, how his body really didn't have any bad smell. Sometimes he used to wear the same dress and inner ones, the t-shirt as we may call it, 6 months, and no fan, no air conditioning, nothing. He sweats and sweats so much that it gets wet, and then he puts it out on the rock so that it would dry on the sun heat. He would put it out, and then he would wear it again as it will dry. 6 months, no bad smell. In fact, it's only good smell in it. It would come to our home for washing. His clothes used to get washed at our home. And my mother told us that the water that would come from the washer, that water used to have fragrance in it. It used to have such a good smell that keep that water and put some other cloth in it so they will have good smell. So, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, I asked Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam, where this fragrance is from? He said, from the grave of that woman who used to comb the hair of Fir'aun's daughter. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, I asked Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam, ma uhiya ilayya fiha shay. I haven't received any wahi about her. So what is her story? Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam said that this woman used to comb the hair of Fir'aun's daughter, and she believed in Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. One day as she's combing the hair, the comb fell off her hand. And she said, Bismillah. You know, normal habit of a mu'min. Bismillah. The name of Allah comes right away. Form of zikr comes right away. So, when she said Bismillah, Fir'aun's daughter heard it. She said, what? You believe in Allah? I said, yes, I believe in the Rabb of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. And I believe in Musa alayhi salam as the prophet of Allah. Right away she goes and complains to her father. Her dad called her and asked her, do you believe in any Rabb other than me? She said, yes, I believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhanallah, you need that iman to stand in front of Fir'aun and to say, yes, I don't believe in what you're saying. And this is a normal woman. Today, the greatest scholars, mashallah, speakers, standing there giving lectures that all is good. Everything is good. All religions are equal. Really, you need that iman. So, Fir'aun tried his best to turn her away. She would not. Same thing. Boiling oil. She had 2 daughters. He said to her, go and bring your daughters. She brought her daughters. They took one of her daughters away from her and threw the daughter in that oil in front of the mother's eyes. The daughter started shouting. As soon as she was thrown, for a minute she's shouting, and then she is in that boiling oil. Of course, she died. This mother, she's watching. As soon as she saw the first step, the first second when she sees her daughter in that boiling oil, and the daughter cried and shouted, tears came out of mother's eyes. And of course, very natural, the mother would feel it. The next moment, everyone was surprised to see the mother is smiling. They took the other daughter from her. Same thing. Again, some tears in her eyes, and next moment she's smiling. They asked her, what makes you smile? Seeing your daughters are getting roasted over there, and you are smiling for that? She said, no, I'm not smiling for that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removed all the barriers and allowed me to see as my daughters, they are dying here at this moment. Next moment I see them entering the Jannah and they are laughing with me. I see them smiling over there, so I was smiling with my daughter. That reality is there. The reality is there. Even if this hadith was not there, we know this is what happens. If these daughters are dying, where are they going to go? It's the pain of a minute, but after that, where are they going? But we need that iman. Then they killed her also the same way, and this is, Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam says the fragrance is from her grave. The point is that iman. Realizing that akhirah is a reality. And all of these things are realities of the akhirah. Once a person will remember this, then this dunya really is meaningless. This dunya really means nothing after that. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the true iman that a believer is supposed to have. Our iman in akhirah, iman in everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mentioned about akhirah, and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam have explained about akhirah. So I was saying at the beginning that really we need to read the ayahs that are about akhirah. Not the ayahs of ahkam, that of course inshallah the ulama can explain to us, but at least these ayahs that are related to akhirah, Jannah, Jahannam, Hisab, resurrection, all of these things. There are so many ayahs about akhirah that scholars say that almost 1/3 of the Quran is about akhirah. Last surahs, especially the Shamsu Kuwirat, Idha Nujumun Kadarat, little earthquake, we cannot take it. Idha Zulzilatil Ardu Zilzalaha. When there will be that earthquake, when the whole earth will be shaking, where are we going to go? What will happen to us at that time? If someone would tell us there is an earthquake, it's supposed to come at the place where you live, what are we going to do at this time? As soon as there is a forecast, we know it, people, they left that city, lining up on the road for days. 24 hours people were on the road. Imagine when إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا, when that will happen, where are we going to go? These are the things that we really need to read. Quran is for that purpose, to remind us. وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ. We have made this Quran easy to get the reminders out of it. فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ? Anyone who wants this reminder? أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ? Don't they ponder on the meanings of Quran? أَمْ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبٍ مِنَ قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا? Or their hearts are locked? So these are the ayahs of Al-Quran that we should recite and look at the meanings of them. They are very simple. Not ahkam, not rulings of Sharia. They are just about akhirah, about Jannah and Jahannam and situations of akhirah. And same thing then, we should look for the ahadith. Normally people pick up Sahih al-Bukhari, they want to read about salah, about zakah, about these. No, those are the ulama, inshallah, they will tell us the rulings. Read the ahadith, but the ahadith that are about akhirah, that will remind us of what will happen to us when we will end up over there. And the books that are written specifically about this topic, we should read these things. Inshallah, by reading them over and over, and inshallah, then occasionally being in these type of gatherings, inshallah, we'll develop that type of iman. And that is the iman that really we need. When the person will have that iman, then the fear of Allah, the fear of adhab of Allah will be there, that will protect us against sins. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Quran al-Kareem tells us about people in Jannah. As people will go into the Jannah, they will be sitting there discussing this, that what was our situation and how we came into the Jannah. So they will say, قَالُوا إِنَّا كُنَّا قَبْلُ فِي أَهْلِنَا مُشْفِقِينَ. Before this, when we used to be in that world, فِي أَهْلِنَا, in our families, when we used to be with our families in that world, we always were in the state of fear. We had the fear of Allah that was preventing us from doing a lot of things, which means haram. People were enjoying haram, but we refrained from haram because we were in the fear of Allah. We were having the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When people were enjoying the haram things, and we see it on the day of Eid, on any other occasions, at the weddings, or even normal situation, every day in the evening, what people do at home when they are sitting and watching the TV, what are they doing? When people are listening to the music, Inna kunna qablu fi ahlina mushfiqeen. They will say, no, we were in the state of fear in that dunya. Allah, because of that fear that we had of this akhirah and of the adhab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected us. As there is hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, a person who will have the fear of Allah and fear of the adhab of Allah in this dunya, Allah will not make him go through fear again in akhirah. He already went through the fear. And on the other hand, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explained of the situation of the people who were thrown in Jahannam. إِنَّهُ كَانَ فِي أَهْلِهِ مَسْرُورًا. Just the opposite of this. That he was always enjoying in his family. When he was with his family, he was always trying to enjoy his life. He didn't care about halal and haram. As long as we enjoy. This TV is not enough. Smaller screen, bring a bigger one. We can enjoy even more. إِنَّهُ كَانَ فِي أَهْلِهِ مَسْرُورًا. He was always trying to keep himself happy with his family through all the haram. He didn't care about akhirah, didn't care about Allah, didn't care about the adhab of Allah. On one hand, the people of Jahannam, إِنَّهُ كَانَ فِي أَهْلِهِ, the same word, فِي أَهْلِهِ, when he was in his home, when he was with his family, he was masroor, he was very happy, he wanted to have a happy life over there with all the haram, didn't care about it. On the other hand, إِنَّا كُنَّا قَبْلُ فِي أَهْلِنَا مُشْفِقِينَ. When we were in our families over there, we had the fear of akhirah, and that was preventing us from the haram. So we did not enjoy as other people were enjoying. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us that khawf, that fear of akhirah. As Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam teaches us the beautiful dua, Allahumma qsim li min khashyatik ma tahulu bihi bayni wa bayna ma'asiyatik. Ya Allah, give me so much of your fear that will prevent me from falling into a sin. Give me the fear, enough of the fear that will prevent me from falling into a sin. Allahumma qsim li min khashyatik ma tahulu bihi bayni wa bayna ma'asiyatik. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the khawf of akhirah and the iman of akhirah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the true iman that Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in had, or at least similar to the iman of Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله.